Good Monday evening and happy Election Day Eve, everyone. It's 21 News Chief Meteorologist Eric Wilhelm, weather for Weather Geeks. This is our deep dive into the Valley's weather. It's the most in-depth forecast you're going to find for our area. We had a pretty eventful weekend, but we're going to have a very uneventful week, weather-wise, this week, but we've still got plenty to talk about, of course, this evening. First of all, I want to thank one of our best local photographers, Corey, for sending in this picture from, of course, Mill Creek Metro Parks. This is Lanterman's Mill, showing two seasons in one picture at the mill this morning, with our overnight snow on the ground and also a fair amount of foliage still seen near Lanterman's Mill in beautiful Mill Creek Park earlier on today. Now, most of that snow melted as we got into the afternoon today, but we did have, a pretty good accumulation across the area. First thing this morning, roads were a little bit tricky in some spots, as you see on this time-lapse video from Columbiana, but once we got into the daylight hours, while the sun is pretty weak at this time of the year, we saw temperatures getting well above freezing, and so the snow did not stand much of a chance. All right, so our first measurable snowfall of the season. Is this par for this time of the year? Yeah, pretty much. Our average first measurable snow at the airport over the last 30 years has been the 5th day of November. Last year was on the 7th day of November, so early November is pretty much par for the course when it comes to earliest, or I should say first measurable snowfalls of the year. Now with lake effect, your mileage tends to vary. This was a little bit of an overachiever in some areas last night. We had a lot of instability last night. We had cold air pouring over the relatively warm Great Lakes and a lot of uplift in the atmosphere, and an early season lake effect event definitely packed a little bit of a punch last night. So we got 2 or 3 inches in a lot of places, especially in Trumbull, Mahoning, and northern Columbiana County. Parts of Mercer County did pretty well as well. In southern Columbiana County, as you would expect, amounts were a little bit lower. They typically are in most lake effect situations. So down towards Glenmore, Calcutta, a little over an inch was fairly common first thing this morning. These snow showers, the timing on them was pretty good. It was a Sunday night. Most of this happened when a lot of people weren't on the roads. By the time a lot of people headed off to work and school this morning, while there were a few lingering issues on the roads, for the most part, this stuff was fading away pretty quickly, and the weather's been quiet ever since. Warmer air is on the move, that is for sure. Compared to 24 hours ago, it's 9 degrees warmer here locally, but the numbers are pretty impressive out towards Omaha and the Twin Cities, and that warmer air is coming our way. All right, tomorrow is Election Day, and of course, many people have voted by mail this year, but if you're doing your voting in person tomorrow, and if you find yourself waiting in a short line, hopefully outside, bundle up if you're going to be voting in the morning. It's going to be cold outside. But the wind tomorrow will not be as much of a factor as it has been over the last couple of days, and actually the afternoon will be quite a bit better than today, a little more seasonable, with temperatures in the lower 50s. I did a little digging here on presidential election day history, weather-wise. Since 1950, the warmest election day was during the election of 2008 when Barack Obama was elected. 71 degrees was our localized high. When President Reagan was reelected in 1984, the high was only 40, making it the coolest high temperature since 1950 on a presidential election day. All right, a few clouds around tomorrow morning, but I think it's going to turn out to be a bright and sunny afternoon, and bright and sunny is the call on Wednesday as well. Now, I think we'll get a gusty breeze trying to develop on Wednesday, but as opposed to the wind over the last couple of days, this will be a mild breeze on Wednesday. Wow, it's going to be a nice afternoon, and while there will be some high cirrus clouds making for kind of a milky sky on Thursday, it's still going to be a mild day and smooth sailing through the end of the week. What a pattern this is. Right now it's fairly zonal across the country, but you're going to see a big trough develop out in the west. And whenever a big trough dumps into the western U.S., downstream from that, you get a ridge popping up. And this pattern may become kind of familiar as we head into the winter season, I suspect. This may be the predominant pattern for the winter, not the entire winter, but more often than not, you may see a pattern that looks like this, with a trough coming into the northwest and a ridge pumping up in the southeastern U.S., and the battle zone in between is where you tend to see precipitation most of the time, although this week not so much. It looks like a pretty dry week. Look at these temperatures. Mid-60s by the second half of the week, and I've got 71 now in the forecast for Sunday. That is not record-breaking, but the record on Monday is a little lower hanging fruit. It is 72, set in 1999, and so that record could be challenged on Monday. All right, winter forecast week is this week. It's a busy week. We've got the election, we've got the winter forecast coming up on Thursday, and on 21 News at both 6 and 11, I'll be doing the kind of the TV version, which is only a few minutes. That will be just the kind of the bottom line. That's for everyone who just wants to know just what's the bottom line. If you're interested in some of the methodology behind the winter forecast, if you're interested in more detail in the forecast itself, be sure and tune in to the online version, which will be posted after 21 News at 6 on Thursday evening. I'll hope to get that online by about 7 or 7:30. Sometimes that video runs about 15 minutes. It's a lot of details. And I'll also be posting a written version of the forecast for those who want even more detail, or maybe you don't love watching a long video, on my weather blog, ericwfmj.com. That's where you're going to find that. We have a La Nina this year. That is the cooling of the water in the equatorial Pacific. Well, what does that matter? Well, when you have cooling of the water in that part of the Pacific, or the opposite in El Nino, if you have warming of the water, that can influence weather patterns across North America in the winter season. This year, we've got a pretty beefy La Nina, bordering on quote-unquote strong. And as El Nino or La Nina becomes moderate to strong, its impacts across North America become a little more easily predicted. It's the weak La Ninas and El Ninos that are a little trickier. Typically, when you have a pretty classic strong or moderate La Nina, this is the precipitation breakdown across the lower 48 states. Typically, it's pretty dry with a pretty weak subtropical jet stream across the southern tier of states. The northern branch of the jet tends to dominate and tends to drive storms into the Pacific Northwest, and they cruise across the northern tier of the country. Typically, that means above average precipitation in our region. That doesn't necessarily mean above average snow, but it does mean above average precipitation would be favored in a classic moderate to strong La Nina. This is just one of many factors that go into the winter forecast, and you're going to see graphics and explanations like this coming up on Thursday evening on 21 News at 6 and 11, and on my Facebook page, my YouTube channel. I'll link to it on Twitter, so you'll be covered, and we'll hope to do a little bit better than last year. My forecast last year was not great, although it wasn't as bad as some. It still wasn't very good. A lot of forecasts suggesting a cold winter last year. We had pie on our face because, of course, it turned out to be warm and relatively snow-free, with only 48 inches at the airport. We should be in the mid-60s at the airport for seasonal snowfall. We'll see what this year will bring. Check out the winter forecast in a few days. Thank you for watching tonight's Weather for Weather Geeks.